So I wanted to do a little update on what's happening with the BMW, where it is, and what the latest developments with it are. Essentially, from the last video, we had found out that the cam had been chewed out pretty significantly. The car was still running, it was still okay. It was just super loud, and it just wasn't nice driving it around like that. So I ended up finding a cam from Peninsula BM. They've got the cam there, and then as things evolved, I found out, digging a little bit deeper, I saw obviously that head is entirely cast. So with the M20s, pretty much if anything happens, with a rocker, with a cam or anything, you've got to pull the head off. So the next point was to try and find an entire head, an assembled head. Peninsula BM did say they had one, and they looked and they checked, and they actually didn't end up having one because they normally do reconditioned heads. And I was back at square one, just with a spare cam. I then did a ring around to pretty much every BMW shop, and there was two things: either nobody wanted anything to do with it because it was too old, or the fact that they were booked out for 2-3 months on all of their vintage stuff. So it's a good indication to show that people are at least still spending time, energy and effort onto these cars. But in hindsight, it's obviously not good for me because I needed to get this car sorted out. Partial to obviously the amount of work that's related to actually pulling a head out and doing this, that and the other to actually sort that problem out. I didn't want to have the E28 kind of just cruising around the shop in 100 pieces when we would need to shift cars around it and whatever. Not necessarily so much that that I'm afraid of the work or whatever. It's just more that having a car in 1,000 pieces in the space that we operate in, it isn't feasible. I ended up getting back to square one, where I spoke to Tim Collins from Berwick Motorworks, who I've had do work on some of my other Beamers in the past, and touched base with him. He was keen to do it. He said, yeah, I'm happy to help you with it. It's just a matter of obviously having difficulty finding parts. That's exactly what it was. So the hunt began to find a number of different things, primarily obviously the cam, but we'd managed to find one, so that was all good. But then it was just a matter of, because of the age of the car, doesn't matter how popular that engine platform was throughout, 80s and 90s or whatever, people just don't stock parts for them anymore because it's not economical to have parts for a car that you might get a call on every once a year, twice a year, So we searched around, we did what we needed to do, and ended up finding a VRS gasket set. So that was to do everything from taking the head off, intake manifold, thermostat, exhaust, all of that sort of stuff, all of those gaskets. And they're the kits that are super hard to find. Got lucky, however, found one locally and have ordered that one ever since. So I'm waiting for that to come tomorrow. So judging as to whenever this goes live and whatever, whether or not I'll have it by then or not. Got all the parts and everything else and got the car down to Tim that day. So I drove it down there. Obviously, like I said, the car still drives. It drives relatively good as well. Yeah, within like 1 or 2 days, he had the head off. And so as we speak right now, while I'm recording this, it's on a Sunday, so the head went to the machine shop on Friday, and we're hoping for some developments tomorrow. While everything was pulled apart, I thought I'd take advantage and work on some bits and pieces while the head is off. So in the end, I ended up finding a duplicolor caliper paint, which was in silver, which came closest to what the OEM sort of silver looks like. The problem with that was that when I had actually blasted back the intake manifold, it looked really nice, it looked OEM, but unfortunately there was still a little bit of like pitting and corrosion. And initially I was kind of like, I'll just leave it, it's patina, it looks good. But then after having painted the rocker cover, I was like, nah, it looks too good. My problem was that I didn't want to lose the porous texture that these have. So obviously the factory intake manifolds are cast, and from then they have that sort of porous finish to them. I didn't want to have the paint in such a thick layer that you would kind of lose that, or you'd have an inconsistent finish. But I was really surprised at how well the intake manifold was prepped essentially by the dry ice cleaning. The dry ice cleaning got obviously all the oil. It had some really bad yellow staining, so I've actually got some before and after photos on our Instagram that you can see. You can see how bad the state of this thing actually was before I got stuck into it with the dry ice cleaning. Otherwise, let's see if I can do this one again. So then obviously use a dry ice cleaning machine as well, relatively low pressure. It's got inside all the ports and stuff like that. So the inside of this intake manifold's actually all cleaned up as well. It was really oily, had a lot of gunk in there from you know, obviously years and years and years of not being cleaned. So all the gasket surfaces I did with the dry ice cleaning, and it came out really, really nice. So the intake manifold's nice and clean, ready to roll. So when the time comes, it'll be nice and easy for Tim to just put the gaskets on, and they're going to mate really, really well. Yeah, that's really the update with what's happening with the Beamer. Otherwise, as you would have seen just there, decided to put a little bit of core flute up against those walls, just because when you are, like when you're doing the dry ice cleaning on that bench space, it's just getting things absolutely feral, like there's just wet waste going everywhere. So the wet waste is one of the problems with the dry ice cleaning. Obviously when you hit a greased bearing or a greased surface or something like that, that grease has to go somewhere, and when it goes somewhere, it goes everywhere. So drive car change, out of the Mark II back in the 96 JZX100. It's nice, a bit of a change. It just goes to show how, you know, between the JZX90 and the JZX100, there's actually a significant difference in the way that they drive. I feel like the Mark II drives a little bit nice. It was more focused on, I suppose, driver comfort and luxury and stuff like that. Every car has its perks, and I still am madly in love with this car. It's really, really cool. It's a nice car. It's a nice car. I thought I'd do a bit of an update, and then that way you guys that are following along can see what's happening. I'll slam some photos in there and you guys can see the state of it at the moment. It's got the head off. It's in a couple of pieces now. So the chase is down to get a timing belt kit for the E28, a tensioner, and we're missing the pin and spring for the tensioner. So you either lock the tensioner in place and hold the timing belt at pressure, or we try and track down that pin and spring, which is who knows where it's gone or how long it's been missing on that car. But obviously it's never had any issues with the timing belt, so or maybe it did. Maybe that's what caused a problem with the cam, actually. I didn't even think about it that way. Once we find those small bits and pieces, we've got to get the tensioner assembly complete and a timing belt. But otherwise, I think that's pretty much it. There's I guess an inlet to the thermostat that's pretty rough. I think what we're going to do is because it's in a two-piece sort of cast housing, you can unbolt the top half to the bottom half. I'm going to try and track down a second-hand one from Peninsula and see if we can Frankenstein them both together and get the best of both worlds. I've got enough time, I might even hit that thermostat with a bit of that caliper paint, because it turns out really, really nice, and it's just nice. I mean, the rest of the car is super clean, so it'd be nice if, you know, you could actually have the engine bay represent the overall condition of the car. So, you know, once all those bits and pieces are here and we get the call tomorrow, we'll find out what's actually happening with it. Hopefully it's all good news, and yeah, we don't need to do too much. Hopefully it's just a rocker. Maybe we can repair the cam. So Tim was under the impression that there is the ability to refurbish a cam. I've never heard of that. I guess I'll just kind of weld onto the lobe where it's damaged and then re-harden it and harden the rest of the cam. So yeah, otherwise I haven't heard of that particular solution, but we've got a cam on standby, so fingers, toes, everything else crossed that you know, we can get a good result and we don't need to do a great deal with the head, and we can get it back together. Not to take any shortcuts, but to, you know, try and start enjoying the car as much as we can, because it is a nice car and it would be good to put some Ks on it. There's some small bits and pieces like a brake bleed that I want to do. The brakes on those sort of vintage BMWs are terrible anyway. Oh, really any car of that era. But yeah, got to do a brake bleed, master cylinder rebuild and all that sort of stuff so we can get some nice strong brakes. There is a 540, I think it's the E34 540 brake upgrade, so you can put the big V8 brakes on the car, and that gives you more pad surface area and rotor surface area. So maybe, you know, given that maybe, let's say one of the calipers are bad, then we'll just pursue getting an E34. A, it'll be easy to find. B, it'll be an upgrade while we're there. So let's see how that goes. So I guess, yeah, in summary, find out tomorrow from the machine shop where it's at. And like I said, hopefully it's not too much. Get away with maybe a rocker and repairing that cam, and then putting it all back together again, and hopefully sealing it back up will make it nice and tight, and it'll run really good. I mean, that's the update. So if you guys are enjoying the series so far and want to see more or have any questions, you know, you can find most of the story. I kind of post the updates on a regular basis. It's a little bit easier just to shoot and post on the Instagram. So RSR Works on Instagram. So follow us on there so you can see what's happening. If you're enjoying the series so far, drop us a comment or subscribe if you want to see more developments as they go. Sorry about the door of thunder. It's really windy and it's miserable weather right now in Melbourne. So yeah, that's the update. So thanks for tagging along, and thanks for following the series so far if you are. And let me know if you want to know anything else.